What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Noah Gray here, tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Josh's channel and check out showmefootball.com for more.
What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fan of showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com. And tonight I am joined by none other than Michael Darcy from KC Sports Report to break down even more of this Kansas City Chiefs versus Cincinnati Bengals AFC Championship game matchup. Michael, first of all, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing fantastic, man. We're getting one day closer to game day. The nerves are still there, but I expect those to be there until the game is over. And if we aren't able to win, those nerves are going to be there another year.
For sure. So, Michael, today I wanted to do 6 reasons to be optimistic for the Kansas City Chiefs beating the Cincinnati Bengals in this AFC Championship game. I did a couple of these last year leading into the playoff games, just reasons to be optimistic. So I'm going to throw out my reasons that I came up with for the Chiefs to be optimistic, and then I'll kind of let you put in your 2 cents. But let's start with the first one. So first reason that Chiefs fans should be optimistic for this matchup, I got reinforcements. You could also say health too, but I'm going to say reinforcements because in the first matchup during the regular season, the Chiefs were without Jalen Watson. They were without Joe Thuney. Kadarius Toney was not on this team, and I may even be missing a couple. But the Chiefs were definitely shorthanded in this game.
Did Trent McDuffie play in this game?
Trent McDuffie did play in this game. I looked at the stats real quick because I was trying to figure out who else missed it. If there's anyone watching that remembers who else missed that game, let me know because I feel like there's a big one I'm forgetting. But the names that I named just right there, I mean, that's a big deal. Jalen Watson, him missing that game meant Joshua Williams played. Joshua Williams got abused in that game. Joe Thuney, he's this team's probably best interior offensive lineman. And you could see how that would hurt the run game and the passing game. And then Kadarius Toney, he's an X factor in this game. So to me, there's a lot of players that are playing in this game that didn't play the last time the Chiefs played the Bengals. And I would say those players could maybe make up for a 3-point swing like we saw in that Cincinnati Bengals regular season game, which the Chiefs lost by 3.
I forgot about Joe Thuney not playing because that really is a big loss because the Bengals were able to get so much pressure with just a 3-man rush. Orlando Brown Jr. relies a lot on Joe Thuney and pass pro and just providing a little bit of help. And I do think that's going to be something that is very valuable for the Chiefs to have coming back. Kadarius Toney, we've talked about it before. I do think that he can open up the game in a way that not many people can. Mecole Hardman, did he play in the first game?
He might have been the other one that was missing from that game. I already took the stats off my screen.
I can't even remember his last game that he played, but I don't remember him playing in that game. So maybe he can come back and play some sort of a role, but I think that health is something that the Chiefs have this time around that they didn't have the last time, and that is a big plus.
For sure. I totally agree. So that's our first reason to be optimistic. My second reason for Kansas City Chiefs fans to be optimistic in this game, I'm going to go with the defense. And some people might say, what? How could you be optimistic about this defense? Not that the defense is terrible, but it's not like this Chiefs defense has been elite this year. We've seen what the Bengals have been able to do to this Chiefs defense. So how could you be optimistic about this Chiefs defense? Well, I mentioned this to you in our video we just did before this on your channel. The Kansas City Chiefs allowed the most passing yards that they've allowed to any team in the regular season to the Cincinnati Bengals this past season. I would have a hard time imagining after facing them one time and Steve Spagnuolo making adjustments and having more healthy guys back for this game that the Chiefs allowed that many passing yards again in this game. So what do you think about that, Michael? Is this a reason to be optimistic? Do you expect that number to come down for the Bengals?
I'm not sure because I thought that last year, and then they ended up – well, in that AFC Championship game last year, they didn't necessarily throw it all over us. Jamar Chase had a couple good catches, but, it was kind of just a gradual comeback. In that first game last year when we played, it was, Jamar Chase is 1v1. We're just going to throw it up there. He's going to get that. And I think they threw for 400-something yards in that game. It was absurd. Do I think it's going to come down? It'll be interesting to see how the Chiefs secondary can respond because, They are getting Jalen Watson back, but that secondary is so young and inexperienced that I don't know how they're going to perform in an AFC Championship game against a player the caliber of Joe Burrow. Hopefully a big game from Brian Cook. I know we've talked about that before, but I think the defense is going to have to be better, right? Like they just have to be somewhat better, even if it's just like marginally better, like just barely better, because it's a 3-point swing. That's what it's been the last 3 games. And I hope that they can just make enough plays to give the ball back to the offense and really hopefully force some turnovers.
Yeah, and I want to apologize too. I don't think the stat was the Kansas City Chiefs allowed the most passing yards to the Bengals, but there was a passing efficiency chart that I saw on Twitter, and I'm trying to pinpoint what exactly the statistic was, but I know that the Bengals had a very easy day passing on the Chiefs in that game. All right. They were able to be very successful on third down. I'm looking at the stats right now. Actually, the Bengals were 7 of 11 on third down in that game. That's very efficient. We saw them do a lot of quick slants and stuff like that. And the Chiefs, when they had a chance to sack Joe Burrow in that game, they just couldn't. And they were able to get easy passes off because of that they maybe shouldn't have. So either way, I think the fans watching get my point. I think you understand that this Chiefs defense did not have a great day against the Bengals last time, especially defending the pass. The Bengals had over 400 total yards of offense in that game. So I expect that number to come down. I think that's a reason to be optimistic, is that I don't think the Chiefs defense is going to allow nearly 500 yards of total offense again.
Let's hope not. That'd be frustrating. I don't think that they will either. Hopefully they're more motivated and hopefully they have a better game plan. But I think the defense is one way to be optimistic, because they've been on the steady ascend for a while now.
Yes, they have. They've improved as the year went on, and they had their frustrating times, their low points, and a lot of that is because they're young and it's a lot of rookies playing on this defense. But I think they've really gelled and came together here down the stretch.
Yeah, and that's important, because if the Chiefs want to win this game, they're going to have guys step up regardless of their year in the league. And, Jalen Watson last week, first-year guy, 7th-round draft pick, sealed the game for the Chiefs. So hopefully the Chiefs can force more turnovers and hopefully the young guys play well. But the defense has to be better.
Yes, they do. All right. Third reason to be optimistic. This one's a given. I had to put it down, though, because I can't make a video with reasons for Chiefs fans to be optimistic about a game without mentioning this. Patrick Mahomes. You got Patrick Mahomes. That's a reason to be optimistic, is it not, Michael?
Absolutely. 75% Patrick Mahomes is better than no Patrick Mahomes. And 75% Patrick Mahomes, I would argue, is better than most quarterbacks in this game. So having Patrick Mahomes living, breathing on the football field is going to provide a spark, and it's definitely a huge positive for this team, because I don't want to say they had no chance with Chad Henne, but they would have had no chance with Chad Henne. So the fact that you're getting Mahomes back, he's going to play in this game at a capacity that's probably not going to be 100%, but if you've seen the video of him running around the practice field, he's definitely doing better than a lot of people expected. So Patrick Mahomes being healthy enough to go in this game, I would argue, is the most optimistic thing there is right now.
Yeah, and you got Patrick Mahomes, who has in mind what happened last year, what happened earlier in the regular season. And Patrick Mahomes doesn't strike me as a guy that is going to let something like that happen again. I feel it in me that he's going to go out there and he's going to give it his best shot. If the Chiefs lose, it's not going to be because of Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, it definitely won't be. I think that if it ends up coming down to Patrick Mahomes versus Joe Burrow, I'm confident in Patrick Mahomes getting the job done. Or if he has to make a big-time play, I think that the Chiefs have given him enough offensive weapons and people to use that, last year, I think it was like 3rd and short when the Chiefs were in overtime, and they decided to go deep for Tyreek Hill, and that ball ended up getting intercepted. I'm confident that if we had to replay that now, with the amount of weapons that have been added to the team that aren't necessarily deep threats, they're taking the smaller stuff, and I don't think that they would throw as many turnovers. So that's crucial, but I also just think that Mahomes is on a mission, and hopefully that entails beating down the Bengals on Sunday.
Absolutely. All right. Next reason to be optimistic. This is what our third reason to be optimistic.
I think it's the fourth.
No, fourth. You're right. Sorry. Fourth reason to be optimistic, in my opinion, the running game. I think this running game is in a lot better place than it was earlier this season. I think the Chiefs have caught fire with this duo of Isaiah Pacheco and Jerick McKinnon. Both of those guys did play in the last Chiefs versus Bengals game, but I think they've made a lot more progress since then and have gotten more accustomed to their new roles. And also Joe Thuney, he could go into this as well. You know, you're going to have him back, and that's going to help out the running game. And you're going to need the running game for this one because of the Patrick Mahomes injury. And that's going to affect the way that Andy Reid calls this offense, in my opinion. So I think the running game is huge, and I think it's a reason to be optimistic because Isaiah Pacheco has been a beast lately for the Kansas City Chiefs, and he ripped off that huge run in the AFC divisional round. And I think you're going to see more of that in this game.
Who would have thought that the Chiefs' running game would go from being something that you couldn't rely on to something that is probably going to be heavily relied on? I think this Patrick Mahomes injury is definitely going to force Andy Reid to run the ball a lot more. And I'm confident in the two running backs, Isaiah Pacheco and Jerick McKinnon, to get the job done. I think that they have played exceptional football as of late. McKinnon was fantastic last year in the playoffs, and Pacheco was great last week. So they're definitely going to be ready for this moment. I think that they have big playability, something that we can't say previous running backs have had. And overall, I just think that Pacheco is a better runner, and he's going to give this offense a chance to stay on the field by moving the chains. And he's going to let Patrick Mahomes take fewer hits, which is really important to his longevity and getting through this game.
Yeah. Now this point could not matter if the Chiefs were, for some reason, to activate Clyde Edwards-Helaire for this game. I don't think that's going to happen. It sounds like Jody Fortson's going to get the nod over him. But if Clyde Edwards-Helaire were for some reason to come back, then I wouldn't feel as good about the running game if the Chiefs had big plans for him playing in this one. I would think even if they activate him, it would just be an emergency type of role where he's active for the game, maybe not even active, but he's on the sidelines. He's there for an emergency. But I really like what the Chiefs got going with Jerick McKinnon and Isaiah Pacheco. Both of them have helped this team tremendously, and Pacheco could not be any better for a rookie. And he was barely, I've said this several times before, he was not really a factor earlier this season, and he almost had 1,000 yards from scrimmage, and he had over 800 yards rushing. I think if Isaiah Pacheco was the main back for the entire season, he would have rushed for well over 1,000 yards. And honestly, I almost kind of question the Chiefs coaching staff, how they watched this guy all training camp and all preseason and decided Clyde Edwards-Helaire should be the starter. I mean, Pacheco was just clearly better the entire time.
It's absurd what he's been able to do in his rookie season. And he kind of said in a press conference that he's waited his entire life for this moment. So I think he's going to show up and show out and hopefully put on a show. But I do think it's important, whether it's Pacheco or McKinnon, that the Chiefs establish some sort of running game, because last year in that title game, they kind of went away from it, even though McKinnon was averaging 7-something yards a clip. If that's working, given Mahomes' ankle and given how last year's game played out, you got to run the football, Andy. That should be the most important thing. If it's working, you use it. It doesn't matter if Patrick Mahomes is a non-factor in this game. If that's the case, great. But make that the case by running the ball and not, his injury. You know what I mean?
For sure. I know exactly what you mean. I think the running game is going to be huge in this one. And I also think that they should have by now, Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy should have figured out how to beat this drop 8 defense that the Bengals are playing against them. You got to run the ball. And I think you have a running game that's more capable of taking advantage of that. Because a lot of times, especially last year, I would see a lot of Chiefs fans say, you need to run the ball more, run the ball. And then they would run the ball in situations where Chiefs fans have always said they should run the ball, and then it wouldn't really work. I think this running game is a lot more effective because you have explosive running backs like Isaiah Pacheco and Jerick McKinnon, not Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I just wasn't confident in Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I just don't think you saw a lot of times where the Chiefs would drop so many guys back into coverage. This is, this new way of beating the Chiefs and playing the Chiefs on defense. The two high safeties there was so much conversation last year about how the Chiefs couldn't play against two high safeties and they didn't know how to beat it. And these defenses were giving the Chiefs such light boxes to run against, and they would run against them, but they wouldn't really get anywhere.
It was because of the personnel, and luckily that's changed. But the running game is going to play a very important factor, like you said. Make the Bengals defense stay honest. If they're dropping 8 guys back into coverage, you can't even blame Patrick Mahomes for not being great, because there's just so many guys back there cluttering up the field and so many, different guys to cover your receivers that it's not fair. So run the ball, make sure they can't do that. And once they start to buy it on the run, you let Patrick Mahomes rip it.
Yeah. And this is actually going back a little bit, but I did find that statistic that suggested that the Bengals passing offense gave the Chiefs the most trouble. Out of all the teams that the Chiefs have played in the regular season, the Bengals had the highest EPA per play when passing the ball. They were above the 90th percentile. No other team the Chiefs faced during the regular season was in that same tier as the Bengals. So they had a lot of trouble stopping them.
You got to step up. You got to step up and you got to stop that, because if that happens in this game, you're not winning this game. So,
yeah, absolutely. But I have another reason to be optimistic that the Chiefs can win this game, Michael. So I'm glad you said
optimism.
That. Yeah. Fifth reason I think Chiefs fans can be optimistic about this game. It's at Arrowhead. Now, I said before when we were discussing the potential neutral site scenario with the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills, I don't care that much about home field advantage. I'm fine with the Chiefs playing at a neutral site. And sometimes I feel like they play better when the game is on the road. But I still think there's absolutely advantages to playing at home. You've got that Arrowhead crowd behind you, and you're comfortable playing at home. This is where you play the majority of your games during the regular season. Well, not really, because it's split in half, but you get what I'm saying. Like, the Chiefs, they play most of their games at Arrowhead. So you have the Arrowhead advantage in this one. You have a chance to avenge what happened last year when the Bengals celebrated on your field with the AFC Championship. So, yeah, this game's at Arrowhead, and I think that's a reason to be optimistic, because you could be playing in Cincinnati, which I think would be worse.
It's a huge advantage, and anyone that doesn't think it's a huge advantage is kidding themselves. It's such a big advantage, they tried to take it away from the Chiefs, because if it wasn't a big deal, they would have just said, okay, Buffalo, you're out of the 1 seed. The Chiefs would have given Buffalo the bye if they could have had home field. I truly believe that, because the Chiefs playing at home is one of the biggest advantages in football because of the fan base. The fan base shows up, 77,000 fans are screaming their head off, and it is distracting. It is a really interesting thing to see, because the crowd plays a factor in these games. And I think the defense feeds off that energy. And it's important, because the Chiefs defense is going to need all the energy they can get, because Joe Burrow is going to come into town and he's going to try his best to light them up. The Chiefs can present enough noise, I think, to make it at least a little bit more difficult. Let's be honest. Last week in Buffalo, yeah, Buffalo has a passionate fan base, and there's a lot of them, but you started to hear Who Dey stuff and chants in like the third quarter. So I don't think that's going to happen in this game. I think it's going to be a heavy Chiefs presence, as I would expect it to be at Arrowhead Stadium. And I think the Chiefs, although it might not show it, they enjoy playing better at home, and they feed off that energy. And it's really important that, you feed off that energy in the biggest game possible.
Yeah. And that's why I think being at home helps for this one. And I mean, that Bills game, that stadium didn't seem that loud to me. And it didn't really seem like the Bengals were affected.
It clearly didn't. I mean, did you see the thing that Buffalo fans were complaining that the Bengals were wearing white uniforms when they were at home and they were playing in their own element? Like, yet again, why Bills fans annoy me, but still, like, the Bengals are going to come into this game. And last year, I don't think they were too affected by the noise, but I think this Arrowhead crowd's a little bit, they're fired up. They have a reason to be loud. When I tell you that the pregame introductions for the Jacksonville Jaguars game, I have like certain connections with people inside the stadium. Obviously, I work there. They were talking about maybe putting up the clip of Trevor Lawrence saying Arrowhead's not like that different from Jacksonville. They ended up not doing it, but that place was the loudest I have ever. The Raiders game was loud, That Jacksonville game during introductions, I've never heard the place so loud.
Yeah. And that stadium was very loud for the Chiefs Raiders one in the regular season because of the horrible officiating. I mean, those boos, they continued on for like 15 minutes even after that call.
Yeah, it was very crazy. So this charge is going to be charged up, and they're going to be ready to scream their heads off because they know what's at stake. They understand the legacies that are on the line. They understand how pivotal this game is for the city and for the team. And so I think that you're going to hear a very raucous crowd at Arrowhead this Sunday.
Yep, absolutely. All right, on to our final reason to be optimistic for this game. Michael, I'm going to go with the Chiefs pass rush versus the Bengals offensive line because this is a reason to be optimistic. I know it was a reason to be optimistic last year, but that Chiefs pass rush struggled a lot during the regular season. We just assumed that they would be able to get pressure on the Bengals because the Bengals had such a weak offensive line, but it turns out the Chiefs also just had a weak pass rush too. This year, the Chiefs finished second in the league in sacks. The pass rush has taken steps forward, and you have new guys on this defensive line and guys that I think have improved. And you have Chris Jones, who just came off a Defensive Player of the Year caliber season. And you're facing a Bengals offensive line that was 24th in the league in sacks allowed and is once again banged up. No Lyle Collins. I don't think Jonah Williams is going to play in this one. Their center got hurt against Buffalo. Chiefs have a chance to really take advantage of that matchup in this one. I think it's a reason to be optimistic.
I will say that someone pointed this out on Twitter, and it's a great point. The Chiefs did not get to Joe Burrow at all last year in the AFC Championship game. The week before,
Melvin Ingram, real quick, I'll interject. Melvin Ingram was the only defensive lineman to have a sack in that game. He is now gone.
True. The week before that AFC Championship game, the Bengals played the Titans, and the Titans knocked him down and sacked him 7 times, and they still won. So even if you get to Joe Burrow, it's no guarantee that you win. With that being said, though, if you don't get to him, it's going to be a long day. Make sure that his life is a living hell. The Bengals are going to target Patrick Mahomes' ankle. Take that however you want to take it. It's football. It's what's going to happen. So I would suggest, from a Chiefs fan's perspective and an analyst perspective, you get to Joe Burrow right away, you maybe take a 10 or 15-yard penalty for a late hit or a knockdown. That's football. You make sure that Joe Burrow knows right away and just set the tone for the game. I really think that you got to get Joe Burrow right away. And hey, I mean, some Bengals fans might not want to hear it, but they're going to do the exact same thing to Patrick Mahomes. You get to Joe Burrow, you hit him, and you make him think twice before stepping up in the pocket or trying to leave the pocket.
Yeah, and you wrap up in this one. And when you have the opportunity to hit him, you hit him hard. You knock him down. Get those QB hits. And like you said, take a late hit. Even if it looks like the ball is going to be out and you think you might get a roughing passer, I don't care. Just follow through on your tackle. Just tackle the dude.
Especially because you don't know. Sorry, really quickly. You don't know what's going to be called roughing the passer anymore. It's literally up in the air.
Yeah, no, definitely. But yeah, this Chiefs pass rush, man, this is much better than it was last year. The pressure rate is up. The sacks are up. We feel like they have better personnel. It's not just Chris Jones and Frank Clark and Melvin Ingram. It's Chris Jones and improved Frank Clark, George Karlaftis, Carlos Dunlap, Colin Saunders is making an impact. Mike Dana, he's solid. I just feel a lot better about this defensive line, and I don't feel better about this Bengals offensive line than I did last year. So I think it's not only somewhere I feel confident, it's somewhere the Chiefs absolutely have to take advantage and they have to step up and do something. Something's got to give.
Last year, if I remember correctly, the Bengals offensive line just wasn't good. It had nothing to really do with injury.
It's not great this year either.
But this year they're banged up because of injury. So I think that gives you even more of a reason. And shout out to Keem Adeniji, the right tackle, I believe, for the Bengals, went to KU. But my friend pulls me aside, who's watched KU football for years and remembers watching him in college. He goes, Hakeem Adeniji sucks. Like, there's no excuse if you cannot get to Joe Burrow with this banged-up offensive line. And, yeah, they were serviceable against Buffalo, and they didn't end up getting – Buffalo couldn't get any pressure, but Buffalo also has, like, no pass rushers because Von Miller's hurt. So I think as long as the Chiefs can exploit that offensive line that's really banged up, they're going to have a chance to win this game and a higher percentage chance to win this game.
Yep, couldn't agree more. So, Michael, that was it. Those were our 6 reasons.
Really quickly, can I
Go
add
ahead.
my one key for optimism, or one thing to look out
Let's
for?
hear it. Let's hear
I
it.
was thinking about this while you were speaking. Travis Kelce against any DB you put in his path. That's
Sure.
my one reason to be optimistic. He's gonna go feast in this game.
Even better, we can add another reason to be optimistic. Eli Apple is on the Bengals defense.
The downfall of Eli Apple, I will be rooting for it hard. So hard.
Yeah. But yeah, no, other than that, that's all I got. So Michael, did you have anything else you wanted to add? Otherwise, those are our reasons to be optimistic for this one.
I agree. I think that, the Chiefs have a lot of reasons to be optimistic and confident going into this game. And as long as they play the kind of football that we think they can, I mean, they're going to have a really good chance to go back to the Super Bowl.
Yep. That's all we got, though, guys. So those are our reasons to be optimistic. If you guys are optimistic, let us know down in the comments. We'd love to hear from you guys. And what reasons did we not mention that you are optimistic about this game? But Michael, with all that being said, before I go ahead and sign off, where can the fans find you?
Absolutely. You guys can find me on YouTube. That's just KC Sports Report. And the website, kcsportsreport.com. And the social medias, Instagram, KC_Sports Report, and Twitter @KC Sports Report.
All right, there you have it. And as always, I'll link all that stuff in the description. Make sure you guys go check it out. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this video. Make sure you check out my work on showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com as well. And we will see you all in the next one. Go Chiefs.